today. This is the Callister Foy Show. And of course, my name is Callister Foy. This is episode number 10, January 11, 2025. And on the hot seat today, the topic is lawlessness. We in the Virgin Islands, the Caribbean, North and Central America, South America, Europe, Africa, and the rest of the world are facing an unprecedented epidemic of lawlessness. Today, we are going to look at some instances of lawlessness which, in my view, has been fostered, coddled, and even coordinated and pushed for decades. All the while, the people, the voters, are the ones who suffer, but yet are being told that they are the ones who voted for this lawlessness. For 2025, it is my hope that a lot of this lawlessness gets exposed, confronted, and remedied. Yes, we feel the effects, the brunt of this lawlessness from our elected leaders, the appointed officials, and unelected bureaucrats who do nothing to investigate, correct, or stop the lawlessness. So of course, as usual, we're going to start with the USVI. And then we will move to the wider Caribbean and to the world. The lawlessness that abounds cannot continue. I am of the opinion that some of the blame lies with each and every one of us for not finding a way to speak up, speak out, and report the lawlessness that we see in the VI and elsewhere to the authorities, to the media, and as social media has evolved now into being the news, report it and expose it yourselves. So let's take another walk down memory lane. Do you recall when WAPA and officials of WAPA were in the crosshairs of investigations and possibly being held to account for illegal and unlawful activity in the early 2000s. Suddenly, the WAPA building in Subbase almost burned to the ground, but the main fires destroyed much evidence from inside WAPA offices. Nothing came of that. And in fact, much of the lawlessness that we had been hearing about in the media and was being talked about in the public forum disappeared. Why didn't we keep burning the fire to get to the bottom of that? By allowing that to die out, we coddled lawlessness. I will continue with WAPA. When Neil Vanterpool was arrested for illegally shuttling a contract through conflict of interest, a contract worth over $1 million, what did our law enforcement and justice arm do? They allowed Neil Vanterpool to plead guilty, but through the agreement, he did not have to pay back any funds over $1 million to WAPA. He received no jail time and instead got probation, along with other things. What did we do when we heard that and read it in the news? We did nothing. We did not burn the fire to hold those people accountable and to call out the lawlessness. Because mind you, while it is lawful what they did in terms of the law, it was a slap in the face of the people of the Virgin Islands. To see that the Attorney General's office and the judiciary would move to approve such an agreement. We continue with WAPA. While the governor of the Virgin Islands was declaring a state of emergency for WAPA, pumping millions of dollars into WAPA to stop the numerous blackouts and the rolling blackouts that were devastating the Virgin Islands, especially St. Thomas, St. John. The outgoing CEO was given a $50,000 bonus. Again, even though in the eyes of the law, that was lawful, based on his agreement with WAPA. My people of the Virgin Islands, that, in my view, was coddling lawlessness. We continue with WAPA. WAPA continues to send out estimated bills, some so exorbitant that individuals have written letters to the editor, bills moving from small numbers to thousands of dollars. Numerous complaints to the Public Services Commission. While the Attorney General's Office of the Virgin Islands, the lawmakers of the Virgin Islands, the executive branch of the Virgin Islands, the governor of the Virgin Islands knows, and WAPA knows, that it is unlawful to send out estimated bills. Yet they have done this for years. And we, the people of the Virgin Islands, continue to accept lawlessness. We continue with WAPA. WAPA seems to be an entity that is fully controlled by Governor Albert Bryan and his administration and officials. Carl Knight, a high official working in the governor's office, was recently placed at WAPA. Anthony Thomas, a former Commissioner of Property and Procurement, who resigned over miscommunication and not being on the same page with the Governor of the Virgin Islands, Albert Bryan. Then moved to work with Manitos, with con artist David Whittaker. Indictments abound. Yet he is now at WAPA supporting Carl Knight and the Governor of the Virgin Islands, Albert Bryan. Yet we do not see that as lawlessness. Maybe, maybe not, but we'll discuss those things. I move from WAPA and I go to the Schneider Regional Medical Center. My people of the Virgin Islands, 4 executives of SRMC, and we'll call it Schneider Hospital, were indicted, arrested, prosecuted, convicted, and sentenced for numerous crimes. Dozens of crimes. Miller, the former CEO, served lengthy jail sentences. Many years in jail. Yet, Najowitz, may he rest in peace, and Amos Carty Jr. appealed and appealed and appealed until the Supreme Court rendered an opinion from the head judge of the Supreme Court, Judge Reese Hodge, that dismissed the case. And so Najowitz and Amos Carty did not spend one day in jail. Would you call that lawlessness? Maybe, maybe not. But it is worth discussing. We go forward to a tax assessor who was arrested for crimes, illegal activity. Do you know what has come with that case? Do you know what is the end result of that case? We go further. Individuals who worked under the Department of Labor and the Bureau of Motor Vehicles were arrested. They were not held accountable. Isn't that lawlessness? Why have we coddled and allowed this type of lawlessness? We go to Bruce Smith, the Department of Education, principals of CHS, sat by while Bruce Smith terrorized, victimized, sexually assaulted, and raped Charlotte O'Malley students for years. Yes, Bruce Smith pled guilty and has been given numerous years in jail. But not one of the people who enabled him, allowed it to continue, have been held to account. And the part about it that I say that sometimes we may have coddled and allowed lawlessness is because if Bruce Smith had gone to trial and testimony and evidence was presented in court, which would have made it been allowed to be seen by the public, we would have then known the tremendous amount of lawlessness, criminal activity, illegal activity, and the names of those who not only enabled him, but in many ways covered up his sexual abuse and worse of those CHS students. Now, don't get me wrong. The law is the law. And once a jury speaks, the people of the Virgin Islands, we must accept it. Such is the case when Carlton Dow, current VA Port Authority director, was arrested and tried. The jury found him not guilty. And so regardless of what we may think, he was not guilty of any crime. The same with Julito Francis, James Wood, and the head of Balboa Construction. They were arrested. They were tried. The jury found them not guilty. They are not guilty of any crime. But what about in the court of public opinion? Because while the jury in the court has done their duty, maybe the jury is still out in the court of public opinion. So was it lawlessness or was it lawful? Curiously, some of the same allegations in those cases are now present 2023, 2024, and into 2025. Employees getting paid and not doing the work. Shuttling of contracts while fixing up people's personal residences or businesses. And so with the indictments of Martinez, O'Neill, and White, the jury again will have to decide their guilt or innocence with almost the same charges, but this time with recordings, texts, and their own words to support their prosecution. So will we, the people of the Virgin Islands, continue to coddle and massage lawlessness because we think that the individuals were or are upstanding citizens and should be given the benefit of the doubt? Or will we stick to our guns and say that the law in the Virgin Islands is not two-tiered, and if you do the crime, you do the time? I'll continue with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficked young girls through the Virgin Islands with assistance from leaders of our government at every turn. Yet, even though we had emails, because based on the emails that came from the Jeffrey Epstein estate in the JP Morgan case that was revealed to everyone in the Virgin Islands, you saw clearly the efforts that were made to assist Jeffrey Epstein in his sex trafficking of minors. So the question is, why didn't Attorney General Dennis George move to indict the enablers of Jeffrey Epstein in the Virgin Islands? Even though, through discovery, she should have had those very emails that JP Morgan exposed to the world. Why? Again, I say, we coddle and we allow lawlessness because we are either under the whip of the same individuals who are engaged in the illegal activity, or we are part of the government machine where we may believe that in the Virgin Islands, the executive, legislative, and judicial branch are one and the same people. And so such a case will go nowhere. That is even a worse form of lawlessness. It harms the society. It damages the community. So a lot of us in the Virgin Islands invariably rely on the federal government to get any kind of accountability, transparency, integrity in these Virgin Islands. And so many are speaking up and speaking out. Many opinions, diverse, about what they think about these indictments of 3 commissioners of the Albert Bryan and Tregenza Roach administration. Let's see what the feds will get this time. Let's see if they're going to get away. That is the consensus. Let's see if they're going to go to jail. Are they going to get a slap on the wrist? My people of the Virgin Islands, that is an either-or that is being discussed simply because the people of the Virgin Islands know fully well, if it was not for the federal government indicting these 3 commissioners, they would have never been indicted in these Virgin Islands by the local AG's office. It would have gone nowhere. So aren't we still, by that mere fact, coddling and allowing lawlessness? The Board of Elections, which is in my view a situation that is even worse and more damaging to the fabric of the society in the Virgin Islands, has a supervisor who, without following the law and having the Board of Elections approve changes to the law, moved to the legislature through the current majority leader, Senator Kenny Gittins, and pushed through changes to a title of the Virgin Islands Code, Title 18, and gave herself unbridled power that used to be in the purview of the Board of Elections. Yet she still remains on the job after all that fraud. So hasn't the board members coddled and allowed this fraud, this lawlessness? No wonder we had so many complaints during the 2024 election cycle. Because instead of following the law, the supervisor of elections broke the law in the first place by fraudulently representing that the Board of Elections had approved her going to the legislature to make those far-reaching changes, but then use those same newly acquired illegal powers to interfere in the election, break Title 18 laws, and then the most egregious sin, take the very Board of Elections to court. Of course she lost. Case had to be dismissed. But to this date, none of the board members have met in special session, emergency meeting, to terminate the supervisor of elections for cause, for fraud, for election interference, and obvious and public violations of Title 18. In fact, one of the board members, Member Liliana Bellard O'Neill, said, of course not, when someone tried to move a motion in a regular meeting to have the supervisor of elections, terminated for cause for the very same activities I just mentioned. So will we, the people of the Virgin Islands, will the new board members step to the forefront and do what must be done? The supervisor of elections must be terminated for cause for what she has done to the Virgin Islands election system. It cannot be allowed to continue. Or they too are engaged in lawlessness from the jump. We continue. A commission put in place by the very same people who would receive the benefits recommended that exorbitant raises be given to them. I won't rehash it. $42,000 in a salary increase. 15, 20,000, 10,000. Whatever the amount is ridiculous. Now we found out that everything surrounding that appears to be lawlessness. And guess what? As I said previously in a podcast, in that recommendation is the supervisor of elections getting yet another pay raise to take her salary to $127,000 and change for running elections every 2 years. Because everybody in the Virgin Islands know that in the off time of an election, the Board of Elections and the election system of the Virgin Islands does not do any work. So the ESVI, top brass, not the rank and file who have to go in every day and punch in to be on a clock, but the supervisor and the deputy supervisors do no work. They work for maximum 60 days out of every 2 years. And yes, I said it, 60 days out of every 2 years. Because if you notice, the then chair is always away. Anytime anything comes up with complaints and for decision making of the ESVI, the supervisor is on vacation, are away, and the deputies are either out on leave or they cannot. Well, I wouldn't say cannot. They are not present to be questioned or held to account. That, my friends, is lawlessness. In my view, it is fraud upon the government of the Virgin Islands. But I digress. The government of the Virgin Islands are you, the employees of the Virgin Islands, and they are you, the voters of the Virgin Islands who elect these people. You are the government of the Virgin Islands. This lawlessness that has ensnared the Virgin Islands for decades has been coddled and allowed by us. Because I keep asking the question, how much fear do you have? Are you so fearful that they're going to intimidate, retaliate, and discriminate against you, terminate you for no reason whatsoever, that it causes you to lose your integrity? It causes you to lose your humanity. It causes you to engage in unlawful activity, to stay employed, or to give them a break when elections come because you know them. Then we are responsible to some extent, the lawlessness that is in the Virgin Islands. And I keep saying to my listeners, we having a frank discussion. This ain't no go along to get along. You can disagree with me as well as I can disagree with you, and we continue tomorrow. But do not blame the messenger. Take the message. Because when it comes to carnival in St. Thomas, carnival in St. John, and festival in St. Croix, more people show up to walk up, jump up, and jam than show up to vote. Our young people come to these events in droves. 18 to 25, 18 to 30. Show up and show out during these events. But the election system of the Virgin Islands, as far as I know, have never put down a booth in any of these festivals to encourage people to register to vote. And that is why I tell you, the ESVI and what is happening in terms of lawlessness, the damage that they are doing is being done because of their inaction, incompetence, blatant violations of the law, their disrespect for one another, and their disrespect for you, the voters, has them not doing what is a common sense thing to do, which is try to get the same participation in festivals in participation for voting. We spend countless hours, countless days, countless weeks, countless months rehashing the very same things that have been in place since 2012. Where this incoming supervisor of elections, Ms. Carolyn Fox, swore that she would make changes so those things that happened in 2012 would not continue. Yet here we are, 2025, 13 years later, and we are worse off, in my opinion, than in 2012. Because at least in 2012, when the report came out about the supervisor of the elections, Abramson, we knew that he had an account, a bank account, that he was the only signatory. We know that he had documents that were put in that were falsified and fraudulent. We know that there were missing documents. We know all that. But in 2025, we don't know how much bank accounts, or if the ESVI has bank accounts, or the Board of Election has bank accounts. We don't know who signs the checks for the ESVI employees, whether it is the chairman of the Board of Elections or if it is the Finance Commissioner McCurdy. In 2025, we do not know if all of the board members' stipends are paid up or if they are being held by the supervisor of elections to keep them in line. We do not know how many trips the board members take, the ESVI employees take, if reports are brought back every time, submitted, catalogued for future reference, or if they just go on trips willy-nilly. So that is the kind of lawlessness that must stop. shouldn't we have reports from the people put in place to ensure integrity and accountability in the positions we elect them and select them for? No one knows more than me how laws and individuals with power, authority, and influence can victimize people. I've been there, done that. But I have a tendency to take things that are bad and turn them into good. So while they may have felt that they victimized Callister Foy, I took that opportunity to educate and grow and become fully aware of the do's and don'ts of the legal justice system of the USVI and the United States of America. And so that is why when I speak, I often refer to laws. But if you notice, I always say that it is based on the interpretation of those who are supposed to have ethics. But if the interpretations and orders are by individuals who are unethical, compromised, with conflicts of influence, of conflicts of interest in abundance, then the system is not legal justice, but illegal injustice. And lawlessness thrives in an illegal injustice system. But, as my good friend Karen Dickinson always says, nothing is worse than conscience jail. Conscience jail. You have no bars, you're not given 3 squares, you don't have nobody patrolling you. But it is the worst kind of jail because you can't get no sleep, you can't eat, and you sometimes cannot even function. My people of the Virgin Islands, that is my take on the lawlessness around here. You got many more examples of lawlessness. Man, we could talk about people who connected, whose children and brothers and sisters and family members get caught up in some sort of unlawful activity that the VIPD show up, and then the case get covered. Nothing happens to them. And the same things happen to an individual from Housing, from Bavoni, from Round the Field, from Savan, from Canton Border. And they throw the book at them. You have people in the Virgin Islands who are connected, who will run off the road drunk into people's property. The VIPD come, they pull out the people, they pull the vehicle out, pay the people off, no police report. That ain't covered. That's a DUI, that's a felony. You have people in the Virgin Islands who are co-conspirators to some of the fraud you're hearing here. Where they might just call a spouse or a friend in the bank and say, look no, so-and-so bringing in $5,000 or $10,000 and putting it in my account. Make sure you flag it not. Don't flag it. Just like put in no suspicious activity report. No SAR at all. Sort it out and you get a blind. I know what I'm talking about. And that is why I say to the people of the Virgin Islands, if you think that what you're seeing is bad, you have no idea what the rest of 2025 is going to look like. Because apparently the feds have had enough. The feds know what's going on. You think those emails and those texts or phone calls, what they have with Whitaker and from O'Neill's phone and from Calwhite's phone is all? Don't you realize they could have tell you what text was deleted and when? What document was fraudulently prepared to try to cover the crime? God knows if the feds have not put the hook in the mouth of the little guppies and thrown it out in the ocean to catch the great white sharks. 2025 is going to be interesting because it's not going to be business as usual. And again, I said to the Attorney General of the Virgin Islands, is your integrity more important than to go along to get along? Because the time is coming when you're going to have to move to indict some of these people that you have already received reports on that are being held up. Because from the minute they file the complaint or they investigate it and you and your department become aware and other people in government are then told about it, those people are victimized and retaliated against. And so now they're speaking. Let's hope they gain enough courage. Lose the fear. Because the only thing a man's supposed to fear is God and himself. He's supposed to fear and nothing else. Not even death. Because death comes to us all. Look around and you see how many people falling down. All of a sudden. Strokes. Heart attack. People who have amnesia and dementia all of a sudden. Time for us in the Virgin Islands to take stock. And now I'm going to move on to the Caribbean. Lawlessness. How come citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, citizens of Antigua, citizens of Dominica, St. Lucia, Barbados, St. Vincent, Grenada, Trinidad, Jamaica, and on, are bemoaning the corruption in these countries? The level of lawlessness in the Caribbean has never been this stark. Crime is rampant. Then you hear families crying out. A loved one is dead and they don't believe what the police is saying. They're demanding an inquiry. How did we get to that? In countries that we say we love the people. This is victimization across the board. It's almost as if all our elected officials and the law enforcement arms, whether it be the army, military, police, Department of Justice or Attorney General, it appears that all these leaders have graduated from the same school. I mean, Calwhite said it best. I've been doing this for a little while. I've seen people lose their job and go jail for things like this. So you better look now and have photographic memory, because you ain't gonna see it again. Commit it to memory, because once we don't talk about it, our lawlessness will not be seen. Yet his lawlessness, including what I just said, was recorded and is seen. So to the people of the Caribbean, The lawlessness that is in your countries cannot afford to continue. I don't care who it is, friend or foe. You cannot allow the lawlessness to continue. I don't understand how elected officials are given one job. Go into government, suss out all the corruption from before, expose it to the people, do your job for the salary that you're supposed to receive. Anybody come to you to offer you bribes or kickbacks, send them to your attorney general or your law enforcement arm for prosecution. Bribes are crimes. Stand up. Stop taking a brown bag. Stop getting money shuttled into shell companies and shell accounts. Stop looking to build big houses in the US, Florida, and other states. Stop trying to have big bank accounts in Switzerland, Cayman Islands, Nevis, Bahamas or wherever, Thailand, Japan. Ensure that your employees do their work for the pay they're supposed to get. Do not show any favoritism to anyone. It's work for pay. Do not try to become millionaires overnight on a woeful government salary. Even if it's $150,000, $150,000 cannot build a $16 million house in 2 years with no mortgage. My people of the Caribbean, stand up. Speak up. Non-violently. It is your right to dissent. As I say in the Virgin Islands, if every government employee, every voter, every senior citizen, everyone who is affected by this lawlessness decides to simply walk peacefully on waterfront, go to government house and sing one song from culture called elections, the police cannot do you anything for exercising your right to dissent peacefully. Civil disobedience in the Caribbean, especially in the US Virgin Islands, my people, is the only way. And so I'm going to play this song. It's called Election from Culture. And maybe you will understand what I mean. Let's take a listen for this and then I'll come back and speak about the US and the rest of the world in terms of lawlessness.
Yes, you, Mr. Politician. We're not blind, we're seeing you. You use the people's mystery for your prey and you use war to be a business. Now I want you to tell the youth that now in the new millennium, how long this will continue and how long we believe you have a law.
This is culture.
White politician, them won't go away. Rasta can't get no peace in this land. I wonder why politicians them won't go away. Rasta can't get no peace on the land.
The name of this one is Election.
Just that even run them way, drive them way. When them come talk about election, I have been the run them way.
Run them away.
Drive them way.
Drive them away.
When them come talk about election, I wonder why the old teeth them won't go away.
Set a old teeth.
Can't get no peace in a yard. I wonder why old PJ won't go away. Can't get no peace down a yard. I told them, run them way.
Run them away.
Run them way.
Run them away.
When them come talk about election.
Every 2 years.
I'm okay with that.
Every 4 years. every 5 years. They come talk about election.
I wonder why politicians them won't go away. Rastaman can't get no peace a jungle.
No peace.
Wonder why politicians them won't go away. Biggie man can't get no peace in a jungle. Tivoli and jungle unite, drive them away.
Unite.
Run them away.
Run them away.
When them separate you with election.
They don't want you to be united.
Run them away.
Stand up, my
Biggie
people.
man a run them away. When them come talk about election.
Let me tell you something, the people of the Virgin Islands and the Caribbean. We all suffer in the same things, you know. The corruption you hear me talk about in the Virgin Islands, it might just differ slightly. But apparently it's the same thing throughout the Caribbean. People taking trips. People utilizing the funds of the state, like the personal piggy bank. They eat and drink big. Take double salary, triple salary, bribes. Take CBI money. And the poor people suffer and they bawl and they go on social media and they go in the news and they make noise. And yet all of these countries have gatekeepers so that when election come, unless you have literally almost a voter revolution where people stand up by the poll places, people watch what's going on, the counting of the ballots, check the voters list, and then look for any shenanigans. Sometimes even having to go to court. And they're being fought all the way by the very people that you elected before, who simply want to hold on and power. My people, we have the same issues. We face the same lawlessness. Look at the US. Democrats and Republicans are in constant fight, constant back and forth. The level of not common sense that exists makes me smile from time to time. Because I don't have some conversations and back and forth with people that I don't understand. Because I was raised that you're supposed to be able to even tell your friend when they're wrong. And feel no way. Because your friend's supposed to be an adult enough to know. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. And then you continue. But not so in politics. I listen to people talk about Donald Trump. Like Donald Trump worse than Satan. And yes, I listen to people talk about Barack Obama. Like Barack Obama is almost Jesus Christ. But when you examine the reality of the actions, it's not so cut and dry. Because Trump was a womanizer. Say it clear. Trump was a businessman. Everybody know. The man is a billionaire. Everybody know. Yet when he ran for election, the walls of the legal justice system were started to be forced together to crush him in between it. By the very same people who loved him just 12 years ago. It wasn't even long, 12 years ago. Everybody wanted Trump in the get-togethers, the events. They wanted his donations, campaign donations. They wanted him to be in the movies, the culture, black culture. We're talking and singing about Trump, rapping about Trump. In a good way. Trump was hugged up by the very reporters and execs who in 2016 decided that he was the worst thing alive, and they flipped the script. And now they hate him. But you see, when people do too much, when people too greedy, and when people abuse the law to the point that they even abuse it among themselves, people start to get a great awakening. And in my lifetime, I have never seen one person affect the entire world like Donald Trump. Close second behind now is Elon Musk. And a close third is Dr. Anthony Fauci for what he unleashed on the world with the aid of almost every world government leader. With COVID is unforgivable. Lawlessness. Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, George Bush the first. And Joe Biden. How is it everybody seems to think that they were a much better version of president than Donald Trump? The one president that cut regulations, that put more money in the pocket of every American. We ain't doing race here. That put more jobs for all Americans. We ain't doing race here. Gas prices gone down for every American. Food prices gone down for every American. More Americans working. Not coming back into work because they were laid off from COVID and da. More people coming into the workforce because they didn't have no COVID in 2017-18. Millions of jobs created. And that is why I say the amount of nonsense you hear, it'll make me smile from time to time. Because I love no man more than myself. I love God more than me. I love my children just as much as me. I love my woman just as much as me. But I'm saying this to you. It is fair. Fear that drives all of us. But fear that the corrupt, the lawless, hold you down with. They put their knee in the back of your neck. They put the boot heel on your neck with fear. But as soon as you lose the fear, in 2024, America, the voters rose up. More Democrats voted for Trump than ever before. More Republicans voted for Trump than ever before. More black men voted for Trump than ever before. More black women voted for Trump than ever before. More Hispanics, male and female. More suburban voters. More young voters. More female voters. More male voters. We could go down the gauntlet. More white voters. More inner city voters. The fact remains is that Trump, across the board, had more people from all demographics vote for him. Why? The people tired of the lawlessness. When the people of America and the world saw that they were treating Donald Trump like how they treat black men, Hispanics, the poor and the destitute, they see what the politicians didn't see. That if they could do it to Trump, a former president, and a candidate running for president again, they could do it to you. And you don't have the money, the power, nor the influence that Trump had, you are lost. And so they rose up civil disobedience at the polls. Too big to rig across the board. And the same way, and I'm going to say it tonight, because people keep asking me whether or not I think that Joe Biden won the 2020 election. And I'm going to say it now. The same way, at 10:30 on election night, 2024, Trump was declared the winner. By far, it is the same way that in 2020, at 11:30, Trump was leading by far with the same margins. And then voting was stopped, continued, broken faucets, suitcases from under tables, 18, 20 days to count, mail-in ballots. Let me tell you something. It takes more effort to be crooked, corrupt, and lawless than it takes to do the right thing. Follow the law. If only the people of the USVI could know the power, that if you move en masse, forget your party, because the Republican Party and the Democrat Party in the Virgin Islands is one and the same. Calistafari says so. They look out for the leadership and travel and donors and friends and all that good stuff. Calistafari about the people, about when my children going to grow up and live and how they're going to be able to raise their families and the elderly, disabled, the people in housing, all the housing them, the Rasta man, the farmer, the fisherman. That's what I about. The small businessman who getting blows from Whopper. The contractors who want the government of the Virgin Islands to do business. Just do business. Not extortion, bribery, and go along to get along. If the people of the Virgin Islands would only unite for once to prove a point, to see if it works, and if it works, continue it for the rest of time. Come together. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, no party, man, woman, and 18-year-olds who registered to vote. Move en masse. And vote in people who you know for a fact based on the actions, not the words, the actions for years, with integrity, ethics, who gonna come to you, the people, and tell you, listen now, X, Y, and Z try to bribe me immediately, who gonna go to the police immediately, who gonna tell you, listen, my son was involved in a car accident, and when the police came, they find a ghost gun, and he's my son. But he have to face the penalty like everybody else. And even though I sorry, that is the law. Them is the kind of patriots you need. People for the people, and not for the self. Because once you bend, you're forever bent. And if you ain't careful, you break. And so the United States for 2024, during that election, people from every party and demographic voted to ensure that Trump became the 47th president of the United States. Whether we like it or not. And maybe we need to look at the people who voted and why they voted instead of looking at Trump. Because Trump is just the weapon the people are the finger to fire. The people are the finger to fire. And that was the message that the people of America, in a majority, said loud and clear to the political class and them establishment non-bureaucrats. You won't tell us who to elect, and we are going to ensure who we elect do what we say, because we're going to stay active, and we are brutalizing any and everybody who try to come in the way of the agenda of the people by the weapon that we put in there. So let's see how it goes. So my people of the Virgin Islands, wake up. Look at the people and stop looking at Trump. Because like I said, more Democrats across every demographic voted for Trump than previously. And that is why he gets so much million more votes than Obama's appointee, Kamala, than Joe Biden's appointee, Kamala, than every establishment and bureaucrat whose policies and decisions have destroyed much of the cities of America and many of the people of America were rejected. Now we go over to England and Europe. President Macron seems more interested these days to defend and worry about whether or not his wife is a man. You heard me right? Candace Owens is saying that she believes, or she's hearing on social media and elsewhere, that President Macron of France's wife is a transgender, is a man. And he's writing letters left, right, and center trying to put pressure on somebody for their opinion. I mean, it's ridiculous, some of the things I read and see. So he's worried about whether his wife is a man or not, and yet he can't just come out and say she's a woman. I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. Because if my wife is a man, can't be my wife, is my husband. So if his wife is a transgender, he don't have a wife, he has a husband. So just say you got a husband. Nobody would have been vexed with you for it. You go across to Ukraine. You have Zelensky. Trillions of dollars from the US. While people in the US ravaged by hurricane, ravaged by fires, ravaged by flood, can only get $750 from FEMA. Or a little bit more here and there. Now I understand that the President Joe Biden on his way out is saying that FEMA is going to give 100% for the fires in California that burned down the millionaires them house. The people who got big money who could fix it themselves, he giving them 100% of relief through FEMA. But the people in North Carolina, the people in Florida, the people in Maui, the people in Michigan, the people in Puerto Rico without power, and who have problems with the grid, and the people in the Virgin Islands who have problem with the grid, problem with the water and St. Croix, and problem maybe with VA Housing Authority, Duno housing project with contamination of asbestos and heavy metals that might be in the aquifer, we can't get a dime. Why he didn't give quarter of the trillions of dollars he gave to Ukraine to those people? And yet, he encouraged, President Biden encouraged Zelensky of Ukraine to try and join NATO when he know for a fact that Russia, not Putin, Russia have stated for many years, decades, from ever since they started NATO, that if Ukraine or anybody else, but mainly Ukraine, move to join NATO, it would be seen as a declaration and an act of war. So you don't want Putin to stand up for his people? That is the lawlessness I'm talking about. Because it is the same government officials, Congress of the US, who had to authorize a lot of the payments of trillions of dollars to Ukraine and Israel to fight war, while the people of the country are homeless and suffering. Back to the Biden administration. Prefers to give snap cards, thousands of dollars to illegal immigrants, but want to ask regular US citizens the whole life story to get $500 in snap. And yet, I'm going to say it again, people in Michigan, North Carolina, Maui, Florida, the USVI, and Puerto Rico, Guam, and the territories cannot get the same treatment and financial help as illegal immigrants. That's lawlessness. You ain't see the thing skewed. There is no common sense. I guess common sense is not common anymore, as the saying goes. But these are so-called intelligent individuals who we elect to do what is right on our behalf. My people, we have been coddling and allowing lawlessness worldwide. And it has to stop. Again, I'm going to say it's civil disobedience. Lawful civil disobedience. I'll say this as we move to Africa. Things seem to be changing in Africa. Africa has suddenly risen to the forefront of seemingly finding leaders who seem to have not only integrity, but a level of patriotism that I've never seen before. Traore of Burkina Faso leads the way. But in the news, I'm noticing a trend where people are now taking a salary based on what is reasonable, giving salaries to the cabinet officials of what is reasonable, and pumping the excess of funds into the country's infrastructure, agriculture, aquaculture, refining, minerals, gold, oil, building up their communities, their cities, their roads, and kicking out the countries like France, Spain, England, and even the US to get a better grasp of how and where and the role that their countries have to play or plays in Africa and the wider diaspora. Yes, some of them came into power through coups, because before, what we call democracy in Africa was more like democracy in Venezuela with Dominion voting machines. More like what we saw with democracy in some of these South American countries, where the judges could decide to overturn election results until they get the election results they want. And even in South America, Argentina, President of Argentina has given the world the template of how to revolutionize an economy, cut back on bureaucracy, and just eliminate waste. Bukele, not a South American president. Unleash no holds barred on criminals and criminal activity in his country. And the murder rate is negligible now, from in the thousands just a few years ago, All gang members are in jail. Unleash his military and army and police force across all territories, rooting out the gangsters, rooting out the guns, rooting out the drug trafficking, rooting out the money laundering. All the while, the people who say that they support democracy all talk about human rights abuses, but never one time speak about human rights abuses when them gangs reign and the people of those countries. And the crime rate and drug rate was way out of control. When the economy of Argentina was collapsing. When you had poor people can't get food to eat and their monetary value was way in the gutter, while the elected officials were living the life in palaces and traveling the world. My people of the Virgin Islands, lawlessness comes with a price that not only you're going to pay, but your children and your children's children, if you don't stand up now. Stand up now. Have no fear now. Tell the powers that be, we not allowing lawlessness anymore. So when I told you that the topic today was lawlessness, it wasn't to just expose lawlessness. It was to speak about what we need to do to stop it now. And I say to you, the people of America, of the USVI and the world, you have enough examples of common sense. You have enough examples of what works from visionary leaders around the world. Pull them out, put them together in a package, and look at what they have done. And follow that example. Become a patriot. Become a leader. Where the people are more important than self, family, and friends. Where the people are more important than becoming millionaires and filling your pockets. Because I'll tell you this, there is no wealth greater than knowing that you did your job, you help people, and you earn the money that you made legally, and you have the ability to invest that same money to make yourself into whatever you want to be. You don't have to thief to be rich. You don't have to be corrupt to be rich. Some are, many are, maybe more, the majority do. But there are many self-made millionaires who did it the right way, following the law, earning the money, investing the money, building a product, building a business. And they don't have to look over their shoulder for indictment. They don't have to look over their shoulder for the FBI. They don't have to look over their shoulder for the police force. They don't have to look over their shoulder for the army and the military. Lawlessness can be eradicated and made minimal if you, the people, vote for people, not because of likes and love, but because of their past actions. Because you know that they will go in there and do what they say they're going to do, because they have done it before. Do that, they're going to go in there and represent the people. And you have no fear. You ain't worried. You will never be worried if you take my advice and follow what I'm saying. You will never have a fear of no leader that you elect going in there and being corrupt. You know why? Every single time a leader is found to be corrupt, you're going to hold him accountable, jail them. And if you cannot jail them, you vote them out of office immediately. No second chances. This thing about, give them a second chance, they might do better. Yeah, that works. In other areas. But what I have learned in politics is when people are corrupt, and you give them a second chance, they ramp up the corruption times 10 times. You know how I know? Just from my little experiences in the last 10, 12 years, 15 years. And I'll give you examples. And I'm going locally back to the USVI as I close. John D. Young was governor of the Virgin Islands with Gregory Francis. Everybody knows the level of corruption that was there, the level of unlawfulness that was there. From what we know now about Epstein, to what we knew then about the private gate, to what we know about the illegal and unlawful taking of your 8%, everybody should stand up against that. Because you all, government employees, felt that an unlawful act done by a governor when he knew it was unlawful. And so MAP was voted into power because the people had enough. And try as hard as the Democrats did, Christensen was rejected by them themselves. And a lot of them voted for MAP because somehow they thought that maybe MAP were going to be the patsy. But when MAP got in, MAP also had corruption that people talk about. And what did you, the voters, do? You decide to give the pupil, the student in every which way of John D. Young a chance. Let me give them a chance, man. They're going to do better this time. And you remove MAP as governor. And maybe rightfully so. I am not arguing that. But what we got now? What do we have now? They have ramped up the corruption to a point that I am fearful that maybe every commissioner under this administration gonna get indicted. Every director might get indicted. Because while Carl White said, I've been doing this a long time, the people of the Virgin Islands, you and I know. You and I know. So while people in the far regions of the Caribbean and the world, the US and the world may not know, I am absolutely certain that you and I, the people of these Virgin Islands, know fully well all who corrupt and engage in lawlessness. We don't have to look. We know. It's just that the feds them don't know yet. Maybe the feds them need help. Because our local attorney general ain't doing nothing. You know how we know? We read it in emails, texts. We hear it in phone calls. We know everything. We know. We knew about Charlemagne before he was indicted. We know about Martinez before he was indicted. We know about O'Neill before she was indicted. We know about Carl White before he was indicted. Lord, I could add some more names, but we're going to wait for indictment. We know. And so giving second chance does not work. My people of the Virgin Islands, vote every election for every election. Come together, unite. St. Thomas, St. John, St. Croix, Water Island. Forget party. This ain't about party no more. This is about the survival of you, the people of the Virgin Islands, your children, your elders, and their future generations to come. It's that bad. Unite, my people of the Virgin Islands, and vote every election for every election. Who ain't do the job going home, never to come back, no second chances. You have enough experience and intelligent people in the Virgin Islands who want to offer themselves up for service. Notice why I say for service, not to put money in the pocket. You have enough people who want to do that. Vote those people in and give them a chance. And I say to Anybody who running from politics, running for politics in the Virgin Islands, term limit yourself. Term limit yourself. After 5 terms in government, that is 10 years. 5 terms as a senator, 10 years. You need to step aside and go into some other form of government to give you experience and your skill, and give other people a chance to come in and set policy and give their ideas to further the future of the people of the Virgin Islands. And do it for reasonable pay. Otherwise, at the rate we're going, by the time we reach 2030, a senator in the Virgin Islands gonna want to make $150,000, which is what the governor makes now, and the governor gonna want to make $300,000, which would be the highest in the nation. And all we got is 100,000 people. When we gonna stop? Be reasonable, man. And if we unite and we do that, vote every election, don't worry about party. To hell with party. Worry about people. And vote for people that you're not going to represent you. You will see what happens. You will see what happens. All of a sudden, laws that have been fought for years gonna get passed. You will have an elected attorney general. That's common sense to me. You will have a board of election that follows the law. Title 18, every section to the T, the letter of the law, and give people options to vote if they don't trust the machines and if they want a ballot box to put paper ballots in to be counted by hand. Common sense to me. You will have judges who are put in place not simply because you know them or they used to work Department of Justice or there's your friend from the bar, or you know that they already corrupted. You will have elected judges. Make them go out and campaign and say what they're about. And let the people decide and not the governor alone. Oh, that sounds like common sense to me. You will have, this is the most important thing, you will have a checks and balances outside of the 3 branches of government. And you will force all 3 branches of government to check themselves, because if they don't check themselves, you will become the shadow 4th branch of government, which is the people of the Virgin Islands, and you will hold them accountable at the ballot box and vote them out. Every time. No fear. Because you got the power. And until and unless the people of the Virgin Islands, the Caribbean and the world, the people, just the regular Joe Blows, until the people stand up and decide we ain't taking no more stolen elections, no more rigged elections, no more appointees who are friend and family. We are not taking any leaders who can go in there and do what we don't want. We want an elected attorney general, elected judges. We want term limits for senators, and we're going to set the salary because we want you to bring it to us as referendum. When you have that kind of courage, then the politicians fear you. Then the politicians fear you. And last but not least, and I know that every government official who want or would like to give themselves up for service as a senator, as a governor, as a lieutenant governor, as a delegate to Congress, any elected position that is paid, you're going to agree with me. If the people unite, forget about all that stuff about party this and just vote as a block, and you become the power, you will finally get a law put in place that allow government employees to stay on the job and campaign for elected position, because the powers that be afraid that like cat, they don't want people who have the same intelligence, same skills, but have integrity that they don't have to run for office. So they know that these people depend on the salaries from government. And so they have a law in place that keeps employees of the government who want to run for elected office from getting a salary. They must take a leave of pay. We want that law changed. The people of the Virgin Islands, you could do it. Unite. Let's unite and decide enough is enough. We are done with lawlessness. Believe me, if you do that, you will come fully active. Fully active. And all those people who walk around as if they are your rulers will be humbled. All those who ignore your complaints, ignore your requests, and ignore your calls for change will no longer have hubris. They will listen. This is Callister Foy, and this is the Callister Foy Show. Yes, we don't have to accept lawlessness. We could reduce it to zero and almost stop it. But in order to do that, you and I must look in the mirror, unite as a common block, and decide enough is enough. We are going to hold every elected official accountable every 2 years, based on the record. Force them to campaign in your neighborhood. Force them to tell you your platform. Force them to give you a report card every month. Force them to be persons of integrity and those who put down lawlessness. Good day. Thank you for listening to my listeners all around the Caribbean, the US, Europe and Africa. And as usual, especially to my listeners in the Virgin Islands. Together, we can do this. And as Karen Dickinson and Dr. Cleopatra Peter, Barbara Laran, Ida Smith, Cheryl Charles, Oakland Benter, Lisa Charles, and on, Cassie Benjamin, Mr. Henley, Kenny, Karen again from St. Thomas, Paula, Celia, Nadia, Chantel, the people's choice. We can do it together, because together we are one. Do not let them break you, because together they know we are the hammer that can break lawlessness, and they know that united we no longer have to fear them, they have to fear us. Good day, and God bless.